My name is Naomi Carter. I'm 29 years old. And the night my father threw my life onto the lawn, I had just finished a 12-hour shift trying to keep a dying golden retriever alive. My hands still smelled like antiseptic. My scrubs clung to me, damp and wrinkled. I was exhausted in that deep, bone-heavy way that makes even breathing feel like work. All I wanted was a shower, a quiet room, and sleep. Instead, I pulled into the driveway and froze. My entire life was scattered across the grass. My duffel bag had been ripped open, clothes spilling out in every direction. My winter coat lay half-buried in the flower bed. A box of childhood photos had been dumped upside down, frames cracked, glass shattered, memories exposed like they meant nothing. For a split second, I thought we'd been robbed. Then I saw him. My father stood under the porch light, holding his phone up, recording me like this was entertainment. Like I was something to laugh at. Behind him stood my mother, arms crossed tightly, her face blank and distant. My younger brother leaned against the railing, a smirk playing on his lips like this was all a joke. "You're 29, my father barked loudly, making sure every neighbor could hear. "You've drained us long enough. I want you out. Tonight." Across the street, people sat on their porches pretending not to watch, but their eyes didn't miss a single second. My chest tightened. But I didn't cry. Instead, I stepped forward, looked straight into his phone camera, and forced a calm smile. "Have you ever been called a burden by the people who raised you?" I said quietly. Something inside me shifted in that moment. It didn't break. It turned cold. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't give them the scene they were clearly hoping for. I just started picking up my things. One by one. Slowly. Carefully. Every shirt. Every photo. Every broken piece of my past. The silence felt heavier than any scream. When I finished, I closed the trunk of my car and walked back toward them. They were still watching, still waiting. Expecting something. A breakdown. Tears. Anger. Anything. But I gave them nothing. I stopped a few feet away and spoke in a low, steady voice. "Enjoy tonight," I said. "Because one day, none of you are going to sleep peacefully again." My father let out a short laugh, like I'd told a joke. My brother rolled his eyes. My mother said nothing at all. I turned, got into my car, and drove away without looking back. No tears. No hesitation. Just silence. But as I reached the end of the street, my hands began to shake. Not from sadness. From something colder. Because deep down, I knew one thing: this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. I didn't go to a friend's house. I didn't park somewhere and cry either. Instead, I drove aimlessly for nearly 20 minutes before pulling into the back of a quiet 24-hour gas station. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering just enough to make everything feel unreal. I turned off the engine. And just sat there. The silence inside the car felt louder than everything that had just happened. That's when I noticed my phone still recording. I must have hit it earlier, maybe by accident, maybe instinctively. Either way, the red dot was still blinking. For a second, I just stared at it. Then I pressed play. My father's voice filled the car instantly, loud, sharp, humiliating. "You're 29. You've taken enough from us." Then my brother's laugh. Casual. Cruel. Like none of this mattered. And then my mother's voice, quieter but somehow worse. "Just let her go, Marcus. She brought this on herself." Marcus. That's what she called him. Not your father. Not anything warm. Just Marcus. Like even she had already distanced herself from whatever this was. I replayed the recording. Once. Twice. 3 times. Not because I enjoyed it, but because I needed to hear it clearly. I needed to lock it into my memory exactly as it happened. Because I knew how this would go. By morning, they would call it a misunderstanding. By next week, they'd say I overreacted. By the holidays, they'd tell everyone I stormed out over something small. That's how families like mine survive. They rewrite reality. They soften the truth until you start questioning your own memory. But this recording didn't lie. I saved the file, backed it up, and created a folder on my phone. I named it, Proof. Maybe it sounds dramatic. But when people humiliate you publicly, evidence isn't dramatic. It's protection. I leaned my head back against the seat and stared at the ceiling of the car. My body was still tense, like it hadn't realized yet that it was over. Except it wasn't. Because my phone lit up. 1 message. Then 3. Then 10. Then it wouldn't stop. My father, Marcus, calling repeatedly. My mother texting things like, "You're being irrational. Come back and we'll talk." And my brother. Just 1 message. LOL, good luck paying for your own life now. I let out a quiet breath. No anger. No tears. Just clarity. I didn't reply to any of them. Not a single word. Instead, I took screenshots of everything and added them to the same folder. Proof. Then I turned my phone to silent and placed it face down on the passenger seat. For the first time that night, I made a decision that actually felt like mine. I wasn't going back. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not ever. I didn't care what they said. I didn't care what story they told. Because for once, I had the truth. And this time, I wasn't going to let them take it away from me. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I closed my eyes a few times, but my mind refused to slow down. Every time I drifted off, I saw the same image, my belongings scattered across the lawn, my father holding up his phone, my brother laughing. By 5:30 a.m., I gave up trying. The sky outside the gas station had started to lighten, a dull grey stretching across the horizon. I started my car and drove until I found the cheapest extended stay motel I could. The room smelled faintly of bleach and something older, something harder to wash away. The bathroom light flickered when I turned it on, buzzing like it might give out at any moment. It wasn't home. But it was quiet. And right now, quiet was enough. I dropped my bag on the floor, kicked off my shoes, and sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time since everything happened, the adrenaline began to wear off. And in its place came something heavier. Not sadness. Not yet. Just exhaustion. At some point, I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, my phone was vibrating loudly against the nightstand. I blinked awake, disoriented. Then I saw the screen. 23 missed calls. All from Marcus. My stomach tightened. There were messages too. I opened them slowly. Where are you? Stop acting like a child. You can't just disappear. Then my mother, Naomi, this is getting out of hand. Come home so we can talk. Talk. The word almost made me laugh. Because talk in my family never meant listening. It meant control. It meant twisting things until somehow, everything became my fault again. I scrolled further. Another message from Marcus: if you don't come back today, don't bother coming back at all. I stared at that one for a long time. Because that was the moment it became official. Not emotional. Not dramatic. Just final. I wasn't part of that house anymore. And maybe I never really had been. My thumb hovered over the screen. For a second, I considered replying. Saying something sharp. Something that would finally make them understand. But then I stopped. Because I realized something important. They didn't want to understand. They wanted a reaction. And I wasn't going to give them one. I locked my phone and set it aside. Silence felt better. Safer. Around noon, I forced myself to stand up and look around the small room. One suitcase. A few scattered belongings. That was all I had now. No backup plan. No safety net. Just me. And for the first time, that thought didn't terrify me. It steadied me. Because everything I had lost had already been taken. There was nothing left for them to control. I walked over to the mirror and looked at myself properly. Tired eyes. Messy hair. But something else too. Something new. Resolve. I'm not going back, I said out loud. The words felt real. Solid. Like a line I couldn't uncross. And as I stood there in that dim, flickering room, I realized something I hadn't expected to feel so soon. I wasn't broken. I was free. By the second day, reality started to settle in. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't some dramatic moment that would fade and fix itself. This was my life now. The motel room. The silence. The distance. And strangely, it still felt better than going back. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone. The messages from Marcus had stopped sometime during the night. That alone told me everything. He wasn't worried. He was waiting. Waiting for me to break. Waiting for me to come crawling back, so he could pretend none of this had happened. I let out a slow breath and unlocked my phone. There was only one person I wanted to call. The only person I trusted to tell me the truth, even if I didn't like hearing it. Ethan Cole. I met him 2 years ago, when he rushed into the clinic carrying a seizing beagle at 3 a.m. Calm under pressure, focused, and brutally honest in a way most people avoid. We hadn't talked in a few weeks. But I knew if anyone would understand, it would be him. I pressed call before I could second-guess myself. He picked up on the second ring. Naomi. His voice was steady, alert. Not surprised. Not annoyed. Just there. Something in my chest loosened slightly. Hey, I said, my voice quieter than I expected. There was a short pause. You okay? He asked. Simple question. But it hit harder than anything else had. No, I admitted. Not really. Another pause. Not uncomfortable. Just space. Tell me what happened, he said. All of it. Don't leave anything out. And I did. I told him everything, from the moment I pulled into the driveway to the way Marcus held up his phone like I was some kind of spectacle. My brother laughing. My mother standing there like none of it mattered. I didn't soften it. Didn't defend them. Didn't protect anyone. For the first time, I told the story exactly as it was. When I finished, the line went quiet for a few seconds. Then Ethan spoke. If they called you right now, he said, crying, apologizing, asking you to come back, would you go? The question caught me off guard. I stared at the stained motel carpet, thinking. Really thinking. And then the answer came. Fast. Clear. No. Good, he said immediately. No hesitation. No sugarcoating. Because this isn't a misunderstanding, Naomi. This is a pattern. I swallowed, my throat suddenly tight. You don't throw someone's life on the lawn and record it unless you want to humiliate them, he continued. That wasn't anger. That was control. His words landed heavy. But they felt right. This isn't a fight you fix, he added. It's a situation you leave. I leaned back against the wall, closing my eyes. A strange mix of relief and pain settled in my chest. Because hearing it out loud made it real. There was no fixing this. No repairing it. No going back. I feel like I should be more upset, I said quietly. You will be, Ethan replied. Just not in the way they expect. I opened my eyes slowly. What does that mean? It means right now, you're still in survival mode, he said. But when that wears off, you're going to start seeing everything clearly. I sat there in silence, letting that sink in. Because deep down, I already knew he was right. This wasn't just one night. This was years of something finally breaking. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to put it back together. After the call with Ethan, something inside me settled. Not completely. Not perfectly. But enough to think clearly. For the first time since that night, my thoughts weren't racing. They weren't tangled in confusion or second-guessing. They were sharp. Focused. And that made one thing very clear: I needed to protect myself. Not just physically, but mentally too. Because I knew exactly what was coming next. The rewriting. Families like mine don't apologize. They revise. They reshape events until the truth becomes something softer, something easier to defend. Until you start questioning what really happened. But I had something they didn't expect. Proof. I reached for my phone and opened the folder I had created the night before. Proof. The name still felt strange, but necessary. Inside it was everything. The voice recording. The messages. The screenshots. Every piece of evidence that showed exactly what had happened, without emotion, without interpretation. Just facts. I pressed play on the recording again, letting the voices fill the small motel room. Marcus yelling. My brother laughing. My mother's cold, detached tone. This time, I didn't flinch. I didn't feel that sharp sting in my chest. Instead, I listened like an outsider. Like someone analyzing a situation instead of living inside it. And what I heard wasn't a family argument. It was something else entirely. Humiliation. Control. An intention. I stopped the recording and sat there for a moment. Then I did something I hadn't planned to do. I uploaded it. Private cloud storage. Backup account. Encrypted folder. Somewhere they could never reach. Because deep down, I knew, one day, they would deny everything. And when that day came, I wasn't going to rely on memory. I was going to rely on truth. My phone buzzed again, snapping me out of my thoughts. A new message. Unknown number. My stomach tightened as I opened it. Naomi, it's your Aunt Claire. Your mother called me. She's worried about you. Please call her back. I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening slightly. There it was. Phase 2. Not direct confrontation. Not anger. Concern. Soft pressure. The kind that sounds reasonable, but isn't. I typed a response, then erased it. Typed again. Stopped. Because I realized something important. If I responded to her, I was responding to them. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. So instead, I locked my phone and set it aside again. Silence. That was still my best defense. I stood up and walked toward the mirror, studying my reflection. I looked the same. Same face. Same tired eyes. But something behind them had changed. Something stronger. More aware. "I'm not crazy," I said quietly. The words felt heavier than they should have. But I needed to hear them. Because for years, that's exactly how they made me feel. Like I was too sensitive. Too dramatic. Too much. But this time, I had evidence. And evidence doesn't lie. I took a slow breath and straightened my posture slightly. Because this wasn't just about leaving anymore. It was about holding on to the truth. No matter what they said. No matter what story they told. This time, I wasn't going to forget. And I definitely wasn't going to let them rewrite it. By the third day, the silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt controlled. Intentional. Like something I was choosing instead of something being forced on me. I woke up earlier than usual, the faint hum of traffic outside the motel blending into the background. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then it came back. Not as a shock. Just as a fact. I sat up slowly, reaching for my phone. No missed calls. No new messages. That should have felt like relief. But it didn't. Because I knew what it meant. They had stopped trying directly. Which meant they were trying something else. I got up, got dressed, and decided to step outside for the first time since I checked in. The air felt cooler than I expected, brushing against my skin like a reminder that the world was still moving, still normal, even if my life wasn't. I walked toward the small convenience store attached to the motel, more out of habit than need. That's when I saw it. A familiar car. Parked across the street. My steps slowed. My chest tightened slightly. It wasn't Marcus. Not my mother. But it was close enough. My Aunt Claire stepped out of the car, scanning the area like she was searching for something. Or someone. Me? Of course. I turned quickly, stepping back behind the corner of the building before she could spot me. My heart started beating faster, not out of fear, but out of realization. They hadn't stopped. They had just changed tactics. I stayed still for a few seconds, pressing my back lightly against the wall. Thinking. If she found me, she wouldn't yell. She wouldn't accuse. She would talk. Softly. Reasonably. She would tell me my mother was worried. That Marcus didn't mean it like that. That families fight, and then they fix things. And for a second, a very small second, I felt the pull of that. The familiarity. The old pattern. But then another thought pushed through. Clear. Sharp. If they were really sorry, they wouldn't be sending someone else. They would come themselves. And they wouldn't come to convince me. They would come to apologize. Properly. Without excuses. Without turning it around on me. I exhaled slowly, grounding myself. Then I made a choice. I wasn't running. But I wasn't engaging either. Not like this. I waited until my aunt moved further down the street before stepping out again, keeping my distance, my head low. I walked back to my room without looking in her direction. No confrontation. No explanation. Just control. Once inside, I locked the door behind me and leaned against it for a moment. My pulse was still slightly elevated, but my mind was steady. Stronger than before. Because now I had proof of something else. They were trying to reach me, but not in the way that mattered. Not honestly. Not directly. And that told me everything I needed to know. I walked over to the small table and picked up my phone. For a moment, I hovered over my contacts. Not theirs. Not family. Ethan. But I didn't call. Not yet. Instead, I opened my notes and typed something simple: they are looking for me. But not to fix it, to control it. I stared at the sentence for a second, then nodded to myself. Because that was the truth. And the more I saw it clearly, the harder it became to ever go back. By the fourth day, something had fully shifted inside me. Not just emotionally. Mentally. The confusion was gone. The doubt had faded. And in its place was clarity. The kind that doesn't come from one moment, but from finally seeing a pattern for what it is. I sat at the small motel table, my phone in front of me, the proof folder still open. The recording, the messages, everything laid out exactly as it happened. No edits. No softened edges. Just truth. And for the first time, I didn't feel the need to replay it again. I didn't need reminding anymore. Because now, I understood. My phone buzzed suddenly, breaking the silence. A new message. This time, from my mother. I stared at her name for a long moment before opening it. Naomi, please come home. We can fix this. Your father didn't mean to embarrass you. He was just upset. You know how he gets. I read it twice. Slowly. Carefully. And there it was. Not an apology. An excuse. Not accountability. Justification. I felt something settle deep in my chest, not anger, not sadness, something steadier. Final. I picked up my phone and typed a response. Then paused. Deleted it. Started again. Because this wasn't about reacting. This was about choosing my words, on my terms. Finally, I wrote, "You didn't try to stop him." I stared at the message. Simple. Honest. True. Then I sent it. 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Then disappeared. Then came the reply. It wasn't my place to interfere. You know how your father is. I let out a slow breath. And just like that, everything became even clearer. Because that sentence right there, that was the entire problem. Not just Marcus. Not just that night. But the years of silence. Of watching. Of allowing. I typed one last message. This time, there was no hesitation. And now you know how I am. I hit send. Then I blocked the number. No second thoughts. No guilt. Just, done. I set the phone down and leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. The room was quiet again. But it didn't feel empty. It felt peaceful. For the first time in days, maybe longer. I stood up slowly and walked over to the window. Outside, life moved on like nothing had changed. Cars passing. People talking. Normal. And for once, I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. Because I finally understood something I hadn't before: walking away doesn't mean you lost. Sometimes, it means you finally chose yourself. I turned away from the window, grabbed my keys, and paused at the door. Not because I was unsure. But because I was aware. Aware that this moment, this decision, was a line. And once I stepped past it, there was no going back. I opened the door and stepped outside. No fear. No hesitation. Just forward. Because whatever came next, it would be mine. And that